for that. She's very devoted and dedicated. So she's very excited about her retirement. So
you said she was the longest serving employee in county history, or tied with?
I think she's tied neck and neck with the music teacher in high school.
And she did start when she was 10.
She did.
She'd be grateful for that.
She will.
Poor child labor law.
So I'm in the process of looking for a new employee, of course, and I also have another event going on in early spring is one of my deputies expecting babies. So I'm going to really need some help, possibly, due to the training that will be required of a new employee. And for now, I have come up with some funds in my office. We provide secure remote access to individuals that real estate agents, title companies, attorneys, they pay $150 per quarter, and that I can use part of that if it's warranted for a short time, because I'll run out if I use that too much. So I'm anticipating possibly adding a budget line item in January for the 22-23 budget to include maybe some part-time funds for my office. We have no part-time employee. We have no part-time money for that. We've always handled it on our own, but our workload has increased with the cases that we're having to put before the court now, the cases that the big roundup that the sheriff's office just did. It's a lot of work for them, but the paperwork comes from somewhere, so it's from us. And so that will be maybe a future request. The second thing that I was wanting to address with you is that under the American Relief Act, I requested funds for digitizing all of our land records, and that's deed books from 1831 up to 1968 that are not on. So I'm happy to inform you that I received state funding for that. So that was $26,000 I requested under the American Relief Act that I don't need anymore. So someone else can use that. So I withdraw my request for that. But however, I did request hazardous pay for my employees, and they work hard. We've implemented e-recording, e-filing, online payments. We never closed our office during the time of COVID since March of 2020, and we had to learn all those programs and learn how to use those, and so it's been a lot of extra work. And we also had the duty to implement jury trials in a safe manner, and so Skyline National Bank has graciously allowed us to use the community room for that purpose. And so we've had one jury trial, the other that was settled. With the Delta Sheriff's Office, we have to transport through the parking lot the individuals for court for the jury duty and through that way. So thank goodness for Skyline for allowing us to do that. So all of that, though, creates a lot of planning for my office, for my deputies that work to get that served. We have to serve additional jurors just for the fact of if someone requests, to be excused due to COVID, then that happens more often than it used to. We used to have sickness, but not, the danger of what this is. So I would appreciate your consideration for some compensation for my deputies. And I think that's all I have. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Let me skip the minutes for a minute because it's about time for Mr. Owls, and he may be busy this morning.
Good morning, everyone, and I hope everyone is well today. Just a couple of things before I present Ms. Duncan to speak with you about substance abuse issues that, of course, are plaguing Child Protective Services. We are, of course, very busy downstairs. We are down a couple of workers on the services side of the house. One we lost to county administration up here. Congratulations again, She was certainly a loss for us, but a gain for everyone upstairs. And also, we lost our CPS ongoing worker. She decided she wanted to move to New York City. So, so big culture shock there. But anyways, things are, like I said, are very busy. On the benefits side of the house, we are down one worker. We're in the process of interviewing now. The other thing I'd like to mention is that, as you'll probably see from my monthly tracking sheet, the numbers continually tick up. We are getting in significant number more of SNAP applications because the income limits have increased for qualifying for those benefits. And then, of course, with the COVID-19 stipulations, many of the programs, well, really all three of the programs, main programs, TANF, SNAP, and Medicaid, are still waiving those interviews. So we're not really able to recertify, requalify people. And so some individuals on Medicaid may drop off once those recertifications are opened back up next year. With that, if there are no questions, I would like to present to you Rebecca Duncan. She is our CPS Investigations and Family Assessments worker. She's been with us for, I guess, about 3 years now. And she came to us actually as an intern through Graduate University and began working CPS ongoing, which is now known as in-home services, and also managed to get the VIEW program really kick-started for our agency. She's since then transitioned over to Child Protective Services, doing the investigations and family assessments, as I mentioned, and she's here to speak with you this morning about the substance abuse and the impacts that we're seeing from the substance use and abuse in the county on Child Protective Services. So with that, I will step back and let Rebecca take it.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how substance use impacts children and the methamphetamine specifically. There are all types of substances, but the one that we see the most, and the one that I would say has the most ramifications for the children, is meth. Sometimes we see other substances like heroin and mixing Xanax and alcohol and things like that, but even when we do see that, a lot of times it's like polysubstance use, meaning they're using more than one substance, so they're also testing positive for meth, which adds a whole other element. Sometimes we'll become involved for poor living conditions, so like unsanitary living conditions, or like medical neglect or dental neglect, and we'll be putting all these services into parenting classes and or maybe even counseling for the child who's acting up at school, and then we'll be 3 cases in before we realize that there's a meth problem that we completely missed. So we've been targeting the symptoms of the drug use rather than the other way around. So when we do have parents that are addicted, they mean well, they love their kids, but when you have an addiction, your priorities change. Obtaining and maintaining your addiction goes up, and then the children come down. In response to parental substance use, we put what's called a safety plan, which is an informal contract between us and families that they will not use substances while they're caring for the kids, around the kids, and we ask that they be supervised when they're around their kids, which means that someone has to come live in the home, grandma, grandpa, someone who's sober and can be the primary caregiver, or the child stays outside the home with a relative. And the reason for that is not necessarily the positive drug screen result per se, but the unintentional consequences of the drug use on the children, which is just about across the board. There's something there that's their behavior or something that's impacting the children. Some of the unintentional consequences that we see is lack of supervision, either being preoccupied with drug use, just being under the influence of drug use, or taking a 3-day long nap from withdrawing from substance use. We'll see parentification of older siblings, getting their younger siblings ready for the bus, feeding, bathing, clothing, all of that to school. There's also the paranoia and aggression that comes with methamphetamine use, which is a breeding ground for domestic violence. When you have those things all combined in the home, domestic violence has a significant impact on these children. Not only are they exposed to the violence, but they're scared. I mean, you have dad who's trying to hurt mom, or the other way around, and that's the two people that they look to for caring for them. If something happened to them, what would they do? It's very scary. We're also seeing young children, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, having high levels of methamphetamine in their system, in their hair tests, coming back with levels at like 1,500 for a 2-year-old just from being exposed. It sticks to bedding and clothing and the floors and the toys, and they touch them and put their fingers in their mouth, or when you're smoking something, most of it goes out into the air and all those particles fall. So that's been an issue. We're seeing an uptick recently in teenagers that are using meth, either on their own accord or with their parents, and that's very, very concerning. We're seeing lack of food in the home. I've had kids tell me that they don't have food in the house because mom and dad don't eat very often, which is a side effect of meth use. Exposure to criminal activity, going on drug runs to either sell or buy drugs with their parents in the car all hours of the night. And people coming in and out of the house, from types of backgrounds that aren't, very safe and appropriate. People they may not even know very well. We'll also see poor academic performance or attendance. Kids sleeping in class because they were up all night. It's fun. It seems fun for kids when they don't have a bedtime. Mom and dad are up, partying, music playing loud. It seems like it's a cool thing to do, but then they're sleeping in class, or their parents are sleeping in so much that they're not getting on the bus. And out in Floyd County, you can't usually just walk. So that's an issue too. Medical and dental neglect, not taking the kids to the doctor because they're preoccupied, they're afraid they're going to find something out, things like that. Physical abuse, the irritability, the intense withdrawal, being tired, make sure your threshold for your frustration much lower, like losing your cool much easier. And we also see incarceration of either one parent or both parents for drug-related offenses, or other things like forgery, embezzlement, several shoplifting, some other things that can be typically found in that same drug world. So yeah, it's becoming, it's a big issue. It's always been, but the meth is just causing such turmoil on these families and these kids, and they're suffering. Anybody have any questions?
One thing I always like to point out is that the substance use and abuse in and of itself is not seen as child abuse neglect. However, it's the nexus between the use and the individual's incapacitation is what we're looking at. However, when you're looking at the level of drug use and the substances that are being used, when you're looking at methamphetamines, the volatility of that substance is so high that we really have to look at more diversionary arrangements to get the children out of the home or someone else in the home to monitor that child and monitor the parents to ensure their safety. So that in and of itself, is a challenge as well in relation to trying to keep kids out of care. And I will say that predominantly when we do take a child into foster care, it usually has to do with some level of substance use and abuse.
I would say, jumping off your last point, that will increase our foster care numbers. Absolutely, correct. I mean, we're going to be looking at, if this level of abuse continues by the parents of substance abuse like this, I can't imagine. I mean, just like you're saying, smoking it in a house, I mean, it's such an unsafe environment. And kids testing in that range, I mean, the effects on those children at such a young age can be so detrimental.
And the level of neglect that we see as a result, especially for the younger children, is astonishing. Oftentimes what we have to do, of course, we work to reunify the family.
Sure.
That's our ultimate goal. But in many instances, because of the substance use, we have to look at alternative placements through relatives, usually grandparents or other relative kin, to step up and become the primary caregivers through custody. when possible.
With levels like that, even once you've removed the children, they're still gonna go through a certain amount of withdrawals themselves, aren't they? Because just from being exposed to it at those levels.
In fact, we had one child that we recently removed that the level was high, or very high, and he had to go on medication for withdrawals.
She had to go on clonidine for methamphetamine withdrawals. Significant cognitive, speech, developmental.
Sure, right, exactly.
All of those things. So it's definitely a challenge. She still struggles with some of those things.
And that was what, a 3-year-old or?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, thank you and
Yeah.
just express appreciation for looking out for these kids because, and this is so important in the county, and because those kids grow up to be adults and then have an impact on their community. And so often I suspect that these types of behaviors are just cycles that are easy for it to continue into the next generation. So thank you for working with it, and I can only imagine the amount of stress and just how difficult that job must be, because it can't be an easy job, and to me it would be extremely mentally stressful to have to go into those situations and deal with those types of situations. So thank you very much.
And thank you for your support too, and I think we have a great relationship with law enforcement, going out and doing those things together for protection for us, because people aren't always happy to see us. And so working together with police and the Commonwealth Attorney and all of that together, I think makes a bigger support network.
Yeah, it's a great team.
Yes.
Keep being that advocate.
Yeah.
I thank y'all got the patience of Joe to put up with some of these parents, and see what they put these kids through.
And in closing, real quick, I just have to say that Rebecca is a huge child advocate. She's phenomenal at the way that she's able to work with the families, not only in engaging them, but just ensuring that the kids are safe while she's working to ensure that the parents or whoever are getting the treatment that they need.
Did you have a connection to Floyd?
No, I didn't grow up here, but I did grow up in the area.
Oh, okay.
That's why she can never leave.
I mean, Duncan is a very common name here, and I just didn't know.
I might move to New York City too.
You wouldn't like it. You better off right here.
We'll be gone for a couple of days.
She'll tell you, you gotta move south.
That's right.
So thank you very much.
Thank both of you.
Thank you.
I think we have time here to drop back to approval of the minutes for October the 26th. Nobody has any additions or corrections?
I'd make a motion we approve as presented.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mr. So, for approval of the minutes, Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Yoder?
Abstain.
Abstain? Okay. And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
All right. So your minutes are approved.
Move on to our approval of disbursements, and we have one of them on the yes, this one.
I didn't know what department this was from.
The new one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what department it was from.
Enterprise FM Trust.
Those are our leases.
I'll validate it. I'll find out and make sure before I speak. I think it is, but I want to make sure. We think it's probably from the sheriff's office, because that's where most of the enterprise leasing is. We do have a couple of other vehicles that are on a lease arrangement, And just as a side note, we're starting to look at maybe we should move to that arrangement for some of our other vehicles as well. But we'll confirm that, but that's fine.
Just, for future note, like, in our normal bills, we have, like, the area that it's from.
Okay.
So, just, yeah.
We'll confirm that. If we find out otherwise, we'll let you know.
Do you want to go ahead and approve the others?
Yeah, I guess.
And verify that?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're taken separately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and approve the others too.
Okay.
Make a motion. Make a motion that we approve the bills that was in our packet indicated by page number 8 individually. At this point.
I'll second.
Okay, so this is your motion to approve essentially the original set of disbursements, not the new page, at this point. And, we'll start with Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook?
Yes.
Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
All right, your approval of the primary packet of disbursements is unanimous. Move with that. And when we have a break, we'll go up and clarify the others, so we can circle up before we do.
Now they take a few minutes.
That's up to you, how long it takes.
Get close to.
Okay, we can start that conversation and see, I guess you could always take a pause, if you would like. So, Ms. Chair and committee, you will recall that I emailed you an earlier draft and then handed out a final draft at the last meeting. And now you have before you for consideration as an action item the draft of the new Floyd County Administration Infectious Disease COVID-19 Preparedness and Response Plan. Of course, as you know, you had one earlier when COVID started, and it looked very different because at that time the rules from the Commonwealth were very different. That was a much larger document because Cindy and others had to divide all the staff into what their level of risk was and report that. That is no longer a requirement. So that's part of why this is a little bit different. I will also give Chad, who was just here, a lot of credit. I candidly started with what he had drafted for downstairs. We had talked in advance about to the extent it makes sense and folks in charge of the two boards are comfortable with, that we could keep people who are in the same buildings under the same rules would be helpful. It just makes it easier. So I appreciate his good work on this, and I will say he did a really good job of making this one, I think, a little bit more readable and understandable for folks who have to enforce it. So some of the things about this that are, and I will say, by way of introduction, this is all reflective of the new guidance that has come down from the Virginia Department of Labor and Industry. And they had a committee that met for over a year to come up with these new guidelines, and then everyone has to create their own and move forward on this. This particular draft I've sent to public health, our regional public health folks, and it has been approved. And so that also helps facilitate, assuming you all approve either this version or something substantially similar, potentially helps with us also accessing the funds and assistance. So just to let you know that. So I'll have to file whatever you approve, assuming you approve something with them this week. But essentially, some of the things that have changed from before, as you'll see on page 3 there's some specific guidance around Sanitation and particularly vehicle fleet sanitation and disinfection, that was not in the previous guidance. But particularly as we have folks that move through different vehicles that are owned by the county, it's really important, and we've certainly seen some spread in one of our departments because that wasn't happening in peers. So, of course, it continues to require availability of sanitation and disinfectant products. It does have a definition of fully vaccinated. Of course, your original document, there wasn't a vaccine. So now it says fully vaccinated is defined as a period of time of more than or equal to 2 weeks after they've received a second dose. At this point, you do not have to have a booster to be considered fully vaccinated. And the reason why that matters is because there are training protocols that have to be followed for folks that are not fully vaccinated. And those protocols we're actually supposed to start doing this week. And it's all the stuff that you've seen on every piece of paper from the CDC, and 6 feet and mask in certain circumstances, all those kind of things, which is outlined in 6. 7, of course, reemphasizes how important it is to self-monitor. And I will tell you that most of our employees have been really, really good about this. If they get up in the morning and they're not feeling themselves, they've been saying, I'm going to work from home for today or stay in bed today, and I'll let you know, and trying to get testing done. Testing has been a little challenging for us, candidly. We had secured a couple of carton cases of home tests that we could send home with people. And unfortunately, those have all been recalled as we've all tried to use them. And there is not a quick answer from the state about anything to replace them. So we do have testing available to the public, including our staff, on Tuesday mornings down at the public health office here.
So all those self-tests have been recalled?
Yeah, well, at least I've gone through 3 of them myself, and every one of them, and we took them out, which is some of our hot spots, and every time that we tried to use them with our employees, they all came up as recalled. Yeah. It's the downfall of electronics, because when we first were using them, they were good, and now they said essentially they are creating false positives, which I guess is better than false negatives. So, yeah, we've tried to work through the health department, and I think we're going to try some different networks because that's not working terribly well. The ones that come through the health department generally require someone with certain certifications to provide them, and that becomes a whole different thing as opposed to just, hey, we'll leave a box out here. If you're feeling that, come by and pick it up. Yeah. So,
Kevin wasn't happy about that one.
yeah. The requirements from the state include some definitions of what's a face covering and all those kind of things. And there are testing requirements for return to work and those kind of things. Actions upon suspected or positive confirmation. These are all very similar to what you had before in terms of return to work and those kind of things. One thing that is, of course, different is on page 9, policies and procedures for employees not fully vaccinated, again, because there wasn't a vaccine before. It says, while it's highly recommended for all employees become fully vaccinated, the decision on whether or not to receive the vaccine is at the discretion of individual employees. However, the following policies and procedures do apply to employees who are not classified as fully vaccinated. And of course, they have to wear face coverings, and depending on they have to wear face coverings in the event an employee is not fully vaccinated, share a vehicle, there's cleaning requirements, all those kind of things. Again, that comes straight from the requirements of the Department of Labor Industry. It says we may require employees to disclose their vaccination status. If that's necessary, it will be held confidential, kind of a double lock thing. At this point, we have not engaged in that. We'll make training available and kind of see how it goes. I think we've got a pretty good sense about what our staff level is here. And I think most of your constitutional officers also have a pretty good idea of what their status with their employees is. The most important piece of this, and then I know, Mr. Carroll, we need to use public comment, has to do with the charts. And I think, yes, the chart is in the back. This has changed slightly, but it's something that the department has put out in terms of what your flow chart should be, should you have symptoms and those kind of things. And so that's included as a part of this. So you can make sure all the managers and constitutional officers understand what their process should be according to the state. So, and as a final note, I will let you know that the Department of Public Health has provided me with some of the training materials that we can use with our employees as required once you approve this or something similar.
As you have had some outbreaks occur within the county staff, you've been following, as you were putting this together, these sorts of guidelines?
Yes, we've been kind of following candidly a hybrid for the most part. So because the other one is what was still which was approved, we made sure we did that. But as a best practice, we've been trying to follow this flow chart as well. And folks have been pretty amenable about it. I mean, generally, folks are, if they're not feeling terrible, they have COVID, but they're not feeling terrible, they're pretty anxious to get over it, get tested, and get back.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, not a lot of people are excited about hanging out. They want to get back to work. So that's been really good. And yes, we have had, as you know, a couple of outbreaks amongst county staff. Fortunately, as you all probably heard from other places, the numbers are starting to generally go down. Unfortunately, we had someone else notice passed away this week in Floyd County. But overall, the numbers are going down. And just as information for the public, if they don't know, didn't see it somewhere else, if anyone is interested in getting a vaccine, initial or booster, they have a big location set up in the old Sears part of Valley View Mall in Roanoke. And so you can go online and sign up for an appointment, and it's pretty easy and is open pretty good hours. So if people have interest in that for some reason, that's easy. And of course, our local business also offers that. Depending where you live.
Local inoculation as well.
Yes.
At some of the pharmacies and stuff.
Yes, both the pharmacies have been doing that as well. And I think, at least in terms of boosters, while they would prefer, at least one of them would obviously prefer appointments. Several folks I know have been able to walk in, and as long as they're not too busy, they've been able to accommodate at the farmhouse for sure.
Floor is open for a motion.
I was going to continue talking about it before we move into public comment.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't want to get started.
I don't think he's going to leave.
Okay.
I'm just assuming. Me.
All right. My problem with this is on page 6 and page 9. And the same sentence duplicated with the reason. Indicating not fully vaccinated individuals wear face covering at all times when inside the work site. I view this as nothing more than a mandate by some type of regulation. And I know there's some good, reasonable self-monitoring tips on this, and I think that should be more of a priority than saying that, if you're not vaccinated, then you're going to be wearing face covering at all times. And that's still each individual's right, whether they want to do that. Regardless of who says you need to have these guidelines, as it comes down, it's articulated as from various entities as, hey, these are guidelines, these are suggestions, and then, we're going to turn that into a shall with bold letters. Who's not fully vaccinated must wear a face covering. I had an issue with this on the first round. I had an issue with that in this one as well.
I know there's two trains of thoughts, and I'm not intending to open up a can of worms here. I know there's some people that's just completely defiant, and I don't mean any disrespect to that. There's no mask, they don't care what they do, they don't spread, and that's very unfortunate. I also understand that there's people who are very thorough of self-regulating themselves and self-maintaining themselves, who are still uneasy about taking a vaccine, and who have difficulties or are not comfortable wearing a face covering. And I feel like that this is making those issues of a greater struggle for that particular camp of folks. So for those reasons, I'm going to vote. I'll support this unless we can, find a way to maybe articulate that a little differently, just as a way of conversation. And I'm not meaning that despairingly or begrudgingly. It's just this board's mentioned it many times in the past years of regulating by ordinance by other means, and this is no different. And publicly, I'm vaccinated, and there's still times I choose to wear a mask. So I can say that from that standpoint.
Yeah, I understand where you come from. I still kind of question whether masks are very effective or not. That's my personal opinion. I haven't seen enough there to feel like I'm 100% sure that it's helpful. Sometimes I feel like maybe it's some cost is just holding that against my face all day.
Yeah, sure. It's like today, I've spent a considerable amount of time in the woods here recently. My allergies are killing me.
Yeah.
Had it not been the chairman's decision to, and along with the county staff to say, hey, we're all wearing masks, I would have still chosen that to try to make everyone else comfortable, because I have coughing. This is seasonal allergies that I go through every year, and I've not been in contact with anybody and well aware of the self-monitoring these things. So, I would still make that decision, and I believe that there are reasonable people that would do that. And I feel like there comes a point in this that we have to be willing to trust our employees and trust those folks. And if there's issues outside of that, hey, they're not self-monitoring or not self-regulating, then those are things that administration would need to deal with. But just to come out and say this is how it's going to be right out the gate, I have a problem with.
I guess to kind of full circle for me, I completely understand what you're saying. From a personal standpoint, I'm not convinced that face masks necessarily are helpful. But on the other side of the equation, it's not just about me. And I think that with public employees, we're dealing with everybody in the county. And so what I would feel is an acceptable way of doing business in a private business where people can choose whether or not they come into an office. In a public setting like this, there's people that probably will have to come into the office. They're not going to have a choice of whether or not they, whatever it is, but how they have to interact with public employees. So from that standpoint, I would probably support the way it's written, just from a public safety standpoint, but every person that comes into our office is protected in that sense.
And I don't want to be one that, stands up and doesn't offer a suggestion. I think a reasonable sentence to include something to the effect of anyone who's displaying any types of symptoms consistent with COVID-19 would be asked, suggested, or required to wear a mask in the workplace. If they do come in and you're like, hey, I feel fine, it's a seasonal allergies, well, we're going to ask you to do this. I think that's reasonable. But to say, because you're not vaccinated and you're going to wear it all the time, I think it's unreasonable.
I understand what you were just saying, but the only thing is, you can carry this stuff for a time before you can actually infect other people before you show your symptoms.
Sure, I mean, it's
It's that way, like with a lot of different, it's flu, anything else. I was just saying,
yeah, sure, I understand
just,
that. Absolutely. Understand that.
And I think the biggest thing for me is we're leaving it up to the employee, whether they get vaccinated or not. I definitely am not going down the road and telling somebody they have to. I think that's between the employee and and their doctor and whatever they said.
Right.
I'm not a medical person from
Right.
that standpoint. I think the mask help. We can argue all day on how much.
Right, absolutely.
They do help.
I guess my point was, I don't know that the masks, I'm still not convinced that the mask is gonna help me by wearing it. But I do think that if someone walks in off the street and I'm helping them, and I unknowingly have COVID, a mask could help me from spreading to them.
Well,
So I don't know the masks are necessarily as helpful here as they are gonna be to them.
even the N95s, which I wore in my business all the time.
Right.
There's a reason they're N95s.
Yeah, that's right.
They'll protect you 95% of the time. That's basically from certain airborne and stuff. Nothing is 100% other than locking yourself in a room and never coming out.
I've often wondered, even with the mask, if this is a virus, and if somebody breathes on you, it's going to get on your clothes, it's going to get on your skin, everything. So, you know, outside of here, I don't wear a mask unless I pull up and I notice the business, you know, maybe is required, I'll wear it then, but yet I don't wear a mask. Because I'm like Mr. Yoder's, I know this against me all day. Plus, I can't even breathe through it, you know, and my sinuses ain't the best in the world, but, you know, I have mixed emotions on it. I agree with Mr. Cohen, it should be an individual thing. I require them here because I know we got people inside the building that's got very low immune systems, and I do want to protect them.
And I think that's part of, our responsibility, to our citizens here in the county, that at least when they come to any of our buildings and interact with our staff, that we're doing everything we can to provide them, healthy and, as best we can, environment for them not to feel concerned about coming in and conducting their business. So.
I think that's better than
Was that the way you were trying to
I was going to
Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. I understand individual freedoms, and I am a staunch believer in those. But yeah, I think our staff has done an admirable job working on this, and that's kind of how I feel on it.
You specifically mentioned in the office about when you're in a vehicle together. See, there's two different requirements there. You've got one where you know, when you're in the office, but it's been 2 years when you've got two people in a closed vehicle.
Right, I mean, that you're within less than, again, it's a guidance thing, that you're within 6 feet of somebody at that point, but, you know, here, or in a workstation, the way the two offices are currently laid out, I don't see that in your workspace as it's complete, specifically, or worksite, inside the worksite, from 6, page 6, and page 9, I don't.
This covers all our buildings.
Right.
It's
I
not
mean, this is no different than.
This is all the county, all
our
our
county, yeah.
employee buildings, yes.
It's no different than what the states has done, you know, if you're not vaccinated, you're gonna get tested every week. I mean, it's nothing but saying that, and this as well. I mean, it's nothing but saying, you're not vaccinated, this is a requirement for that. So, I mean, that's, I understand everything that's been mentioned here. But the short and simple is you're having additional requirements that's on those who make a decision for whatever personal reason they decide not to take the vaccine. You're making it more difficult for those folks. And it's And that's the truth if you boil down to it. It's either you wear a mask or in some places of employment, like through the Commonwealth, you get tested every week. Have something jabbed up your nose. So where's the personal liberty in that?
Well, there's things in any business that you're not, I mean, I could go work at the grocery store and say, well, you forced me to wear an apron at Slaughter's when I was bagging groceries. I don't want to wear it. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, respectfully, that's completely different. Mr. Gary. I mean, you're talking about a vaccine that people don't fully or not comfortable with. There's not a lot of research out there. Talking about wearing an apron versus a mask because of not being vaccinated is completely different.
Well, what
But in every work, there's requirements that
Yeah, some of those requirements.
that come with the job, and it's not unreasonable for us to require someone to wear a mask. I don't think that's unreasonable if they're not vaccinated. It's actually making an exception for them if they don't want to be vaccinated. And I am not in any way wishing to force someone to get vaccinated. I completely believe your body, your choice.
someone can come up with better wording than me, but what if it said any employee who is not fully vaccinated must wear a face covering or surgical mask at all times while
Nothing got to do with it?
well, no, while
Interacting with.
interacting with another individual within the building. In other words, I'm sitting at Dr. Millsap's, I'll use you as an example. You're in your office. You know, you're asked Mark or Angie or whoever to come to your office. And you haven't been vaccinated. You put your mask on when that person comes into your office. Do you see where I'm going? I want to try and protect everybody. But that does open the freedom up where if she's within her office space and nobody else is in the room, they could not wear a mask.
I'd like to be consistent, maybe with those lines. I think that's a great suggestion, but maybe better to say since the regulation is within 6 feet, within 15 minutes, then you're considered to be in contact or contracted something. So anybody who's within 6 feet or less, should be required at that point. But outside of that, that gives people the liberty. If I sit down at my desk and there's nobody within a stone's throw, and I'm not vaccinated, then I'm not treated any differently than anybody else who is.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's what I meant.
That covers my concern of,
Well, that's
someone
what
coming into the office.
Well, that's what we do. We sit here and we try and find somewhere in the middle where we can all live with it. Now, would that
I think it's
address
reasonable.
your concern?
I think it's reasonable. I mean, if you're within 6 feet within somebody or less, you should.
Does that still meet the guidelines?
Well, if I might, and this is, I didn't give enough clarity in my comments. So the first part of what you are suggesting is actually listed as an exception. So my apologies that I didn't highlight that.
Okay.
So apparently, many people are tracking this in that. So there are 3 exceptions listed, and one is to your discussion point. If you're alone in a room, top of page 7. If when employees are alone in your room, so using the exact example that Mr. Booth gave. But now and then it says, well, eating and drinking when the employee is at least 6 feet away, kind of thing. So that gets to, I think, the concept that Mr. Coleman was suggesting. So if you all potentially want to change to, or in somewhere make it so it doesn't necessarily require while eating, we can certainly submit it and see if that's. If they say no, then I'll bring it back.
I think maybe if we could just edit one to say, instead of an alone, this is the way my mind works, in a room, maybe with, just really honing down on that 6 feet type of thing. I know that's a number 2. But what's the definition of alone in a room? I think you see where I'm kind of going with that, maybe saying if you're alone, or if you're not within 6 feet or something.
Another person.
Does that make sense? You see the train of thought in there? Just to be very clear about it.
Mr. Chair, if I might, what if we picked up the language at the second part of number 2 and essentially repeated that at the end of 1? So it would say when an employee is alone in a room, or provided each employee is at least 6 feet away from the other person.
Yeah, I think
And just move that up
Yeah,
there.
sure, yeah, I think
And
that's
then
good.
you would have to get that approved.
That's all I'm looking for, you know, just,
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm not trying to get into the unreasonable camp of things, I'm not. I just think that you don't need to be, you know, and I've said enough, but anyway, thank you for your
Yeah,
consideration.
I think
this-
that's valid. I didn't quite follow you from the beginning. I was thinking you didn't want it at all.
No.
And my concern was somebody walks in the door and we're gonna interact with them without a mask and then, you know, it's not,
But this way,
this way you would in that situation, so that covers my concern.
So if we move that up, it's their language, chances are it's gonna be pretty much acceptable, I would tend to think.
Well, my hope was by suggesting we repeat their
That's
language
what I'm
from the
saying.
previous,
Yeah.
our odds are better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know that it'll work for sure, but it's dramatically better, and then
When
we'll
you
see.
have
If
it,
they say no, then
We'll come
I'll
back
let
and
you-
hammer again.
I'll let you know,
Another
you guys
30
can
minutes.
decide what you wanna do.
all right.
I appreciate it.
Because I was sitting there by myself all day with a
With
mask,
mask
no one
on.
around me.
Yeah,
I mean, at some
so
point that
do
gets.
you need us to approve with the recommended changes so you can submit it?
Yes, if you would entertain that, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I think that would be helpful. And then I will submit it, if it's approved by y'all, I will submit it to Public Health. I will highlight that this is the change from what we submitted before. Let us know if you have any questions, concerns, and see what I get back.
Can you send me a draft copy before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would make the motions there to approve it as amended
Second.
and authorize appropriate signatures or whatever is necessary.
Motion is second, any other discussion?
All right. I forgot what number this is. All right. Ms. Chair, would you like me to? Oh, no, thank you. Should we go ahead? All right, so the motion before you all is to approve as amended the proposed Floyd County Administration Infectious Disease COVID-19 Preparedness and Response Plan. Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Ms. Kookaburra,
Yes,
Mr. Coleman,
As amended, yes.
and Mr. Thurman.
Yes.
All right, unanimous as amended. And again, I will forward to you a revised draft, and then we will forward that on to public.
So, now, since that easy one took it long, probably about 11:30 or so, we probably ought to be thinking about putting a lunch order in and maybe a supper.
Not all the supper on this time.
Hey, down.
Yeah.
Would you be in for lunch?
We're gonna have to get the motion.
you got a tree stand you want to go
Pretty sure the one I'm hunting's already walked by my stand this morning.
I saw an incoming buck from my tractor when I was mowing hay yesterday, so
Yeah.
you just tell them don't bail. You might go get a shot with them.
All right.
Don't you spot you.
That comes about the house and looks through the big bay windows. Are you all right today?
I've heard about 3 minutes, I'm gonna try to squeeze that public comment in there.
That's supposed to be my suggestion. I felt for sure Mr. Durbin I could hear him in my head. So.
It is the intent that all persons attending the meeting of the board, regardless of handicap and condition, shall have an opportunity to participate. If any person present requires any special assistance, please let the board know in order that arrangements can be made. I'll open the floor to public comment. We have public comment, limit your comments to 4 minutes, and state your name and district you're from.
I'm Yolanda Bethel, Indian Valley. I wasn't going to speak, but thank you, Justin, for delaying a little bit and getting it changed. I'd like to remind everybody that our God gives us our rights, not the state, not the feds. Mandates are not laws. And the rules that have been given out on this COVID stuff, it was referred to in the last minutes as a law. It's actually a mandate. Laws are passed through steps, and this mandate has not gone through those appropriate steps. So it doesn't carry the weight of law. I'd like you to keep that in mind. I'd also like to review that masks are not effective. That's up for your own research. And as a nurse of 25 years, I've had a lot of experience with ventilator-associated pneumonia, and there's a lot of that with masks too. So people who can't clear their own secretions, it's not a healthy thing. And I just like to say thank you, Justin. Thank you.
I don't see anyone else unless he wants to talk.
I have no opinions.
I know better than that.
Spoken like a married man.
Don't talk to nobody.
I write it, I'll say it.
I go ahead and declare that public comment period closed, and that puts right on time for Dr. Weber.
See what happens. Man,
Is that quick?
that's it.
I told you, I don't mind sitting in a meeting where I don't have to talk. I'll take y'all's time. I guess the only updates, and the first one was follow, piggyback on what y'all just did. You know, that's what we're all waiting for, from the OSHA ruling, November 5th, only in this state has 30 days. And the records that we have had to keep and report have been incredible, but fortunately we're a small school division and we work directly with New River Health District and the Department of Labor in our area when we have to. So, you know, we're like you all, we'll wait for the guidelines and see what the guidelines are from that standpoint. But fortunately, you know, it is on the downswing. I meet weekly with the superintendents on a call within our HD, and they do just a great job. So we're in good shape there and staying ahead and seeing what we got and keep going. But the other thing is you had some along the healthy side, the supplemental. So a lot of these supplementals from ESSER 2, ESSER 3, Coronas, I can't remember all the acronyms. The next one that's out there, we're in the process of doing that, which is purely HVAC. We don't get a whole lot here, but like I said, we have filled up the projects that were taken out of the HVAC with this, and it's fitting nicely with everything. I did on the board report last night kind of an aerial view of where they are. The bipolar ionization is going in. The makeup airs and some of the other units that were taken out. The beauty of this is, like I told you, they were already engineered and spec'd out from the original 2 years ago. So Train and the other people that are, other companies that are doing it just fit right into it. So there was really no planning at all. It's already designed. So that's going good, and the progress on that's going to continue. So you'll see those supplementals come out, and it'll be an in and out. We haven't had any problems with the money from the federal relief. We put it in like we do all federal funding through the online portal with VDOE. So that system seems to work pretty well. And unfortunately, in life, it's a lot easier to spend little money than it is a lot of money. So we just have a little money on this, so it's easier. But I'd like to have the problem of spending a lot of money too sometimes. We don't have that right now. From that standpoint, you know, we put some money, we held it in the capital improvement like we have to because of equipment. So one of the things that we're changing on the CCDC is making individual bathrooms, and these are nice. They're up to code. We have enough. It's almost like a little open hallway. It's probably how every building should be designed. That is an added expense that we will pay for out of capital improvement by not by just using that money that we put in there. What we want to do is protect the contingency fund because we're not quite halfway done. So we're in good shape with the contingency fund on the CCDC and make sure we're right there on budget or below with that. So the other thing, Ladina helped, and we put money because the products weren't ordered to upgrade the welding equipment and the building trades. They weren't part of the CCDC, some of the other equipment, but our teachers wanted to make sure we have top of the line in all of those. We were able to put that aside. That equipment has now come in, but like anything else, you have to wait, but you got to lock in right away to get the price. So that was the other capital improvement. Ladina has gotten the grant that we're adding the other pieces for our welding and adult education in the welding lab too. So instead of dumping all that money in up front saying we want everything, we're fortunate enough to get grants. We're fortunate enough to use some of the funds that we had and basically some of the ESSER funds that replace some of the other funds we had. We were able to use as upgrades instead of adding to the CCDC budget of that. So all those are working well. And right now we're at an end of March punch out list for the new section. And we just, I told the board, we got a perfect schedule. We're not out of an area where we need to get into quick. And we're not having like a July initial date where we need to be in August 1st. We have plenty of time there, so we'll be able to look at the logistics when we start moving and see what we want to do. The nice thing about most of the new section is we're going to have the equipment in there already as part of it. So we'll see when we make that transition. That'll be the next big move. And then once we do that, we'll see where the road situation is, and they're hopefully going to get rolling on that before bad weather. And then we'll have some nice decisions to make on that.
Can you circle back to the March? What did you mean by March?
That's for the phase one where the new section's done.
Gotcha.
That's their timeline now. With equipment coming in and workers, I mean, we've been consistent, but everything on the outside done, the roof's done, the interior walls are about done. Once all that's done, they start cleaning up, probably a good time for a walkthrough.
Yeah.
Because you can really see each room now. You can see the location. Until you hit, and we'll show you on the map, until you hit where they're going to start renovating, you'll be able to see all the new parts.
And that window will give you plenty of time to set up, do everything after you
Yeah, that's almost 3 months.
Yeah.
That we can look at it and see. The first one is going to be important now because the sooner they can get started on renovation, the better. Renovation is not, obviously not going to be as extensive.
No.
And they've already went through, they've already piped, they've already did what they needed to do when they couldn't do anything else for the renovation side. So a lot of that prep works, some of the prep work's done. I would say a little less than 50%.
And then once you get to the other side set up, then it's a matter of little inconvenience moving for, and then you start on them go.
Yep, it should work out timing good, and then once that road starts, that'd be the next discussion. Probably need to discuss that starting at that time to see, get VDOT. Obviously, it'd be good for VDOT to, they're in charge of it now.
Are you still considering making the new road a public road or just a private road?
That's what we need to talk about between both boards and see what the best thing to do is. I mean, obviously, we're taking all the traffic off the Oak Hill neighborhood. So we're putting all the traffic on that road. So I think we need to look at it with the sheriff's department, look at it from, emergency response, look at it from VDOE and maintenance. I mean, there's some angles there we need to look at. But they're all good stuff.
But they are going to, whatever they're building there is going to be built to the standards.
Oh, yeah.
Then decide what we do with it.
Yeah.
It'll have to be built to before VDOT will accept it.
Oh, we got Snobble right there, and then we got VDOT right there, and boy, they don't let you. And that's not, And that's dirt that was there.
And don't forget about the water off of the EMS and back as well.
Oh, they'll be right there too. Everything was good on the water runoff too, so. Oh, you'll have a lot of chefs in that kitchen right there.
That's what I was getting at.
On the, when you decide to do a walkthrough, that's exciting, and
Yeah.
I know we're all looking forward to that. I just would request if Mr. Coleman is interested in going along, he was a vital part of getting
Oh,
started.
he will continue to be included. He's got his hard hat and oh yeah, we'll continue, we'll continue, and it may be before Christmas, we'll see.
I would like
Maybe
to see it
before
go, right now, see it through, you know, even though it's not on the board.
If we find
Thank you.
I mean, they got heaters in there, those guys don't like to be in there in the cold, but, it's getting to the point where it's recognizable inside.
He jumped ship, so he's out there.
No, it's funny you mentioned that. I was just sitting here thinking, I was like, kind of like to see that. We worked on that for a while. So I appreciate you.
Yeah,
Get you in there, don't you?
You'll be part of every step, and like I said, next one's the walkthrough, and then that road, and then that probably into March. Those are probably the next three highlights.
I can still remember when we did the, I can't even think of the name. Is it the building in Commerce Park, is it Innovation Center? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I get confused between the different ones.
Yeah.
But David Ingram had been just left the board, and when they were working on it, and I just remember thinking, I wanted to make sure he was there, because he had worked so hard on it, and then to not be able to see it completed is just, you know, you want to, the people that did the work, you want to see them there to
And I have
do
to
it.
say, you all and EDA and Ladina, and I mean, we're just right side by side with Ladina on jobs. And she's just, I mean, this is how a community should be when you start looking at this, and you know, everybody drives it. It's just not one, so we're in pretty good shape, and we got internships looking out there now, and we're lining everything, whether it's a grant or whether it's a company coming into the shell building or the space that you all have that we can align with what we're doing. So it's good stuff.
I wanna just commend, I'll talk to you a little bit more about it later, maybe, but I'm starting to get involved in a new business in Floyd, and my partners talked to several of the teachers at the school, whether it might fit with doing some work with the business we're working on. And they have been wonderful, just ideas and being able to bounce things off one another, and, yeah, you've got a really good group of folks there on the professionals.
It's a we thing. I have never accomplished anything. There's no question why the first word on that standard is collaboration, because, you know, we want to send them out right back into Floyd County to have a good business and a good life here.
Absolutely.
I think it'd be a good idea for a new board member to do the walkthrough with us. So she'll know what we're talking about.
If it happens before.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll need an additional hard hat if you don't.
We got it. Believe me, we got it. Things do fall from
Yeah.
I think those are the main updates, and, you know, we'll see what January next year brings budget-wise. No word on that, but we're in good shape. We're where we thought we'd be at this point, and continue to be efficient with everything.
Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, we'll be talking.
Thank you for what you do, sir.
Yep.